Hello, everyone. My name is Kalani Smith. I am one of Alameda County's CoC chairman. I am also an Emerging Leaders alumni. Actually, one of the first emerging leaders. And I'm also a case manager, and I work in supporting homelessness prevention. That's what I do. I'm here to welcome you all to our panel today. Thank you for coming. We have some wonderful speakers. These are my friends as well. We have Jen. We have Jen, we have Deidre, and we have Freeway here. Today I will be speaking on supporting persons with lived experiences. Jen will be speaking on supporting people with lived experiences in community spaces. Deidre will speak on enhancing the role of persons with lived experience in continuum of care committees and advisory boards. And Freeway will be speaking on walking the walk and harm reduction, creating safe space in the continuum of care for the inclusion of people with lived experiences who use substances. Again, I thank you all for being here and hearing my wonderful friends. I'm going to pass the mic now to Jen.
Thank you. People keep asking me to speak because I'm someone with lived experience, and it makes me happy and nervous every time. So I'm just letting you guys know. But you know, the only way to get better at something is just to do it. So here I am doing it. I wanted to say that what I have to say comes from a place of vulnerability. I'm asking you for help. This is not meant to criticize the CoC or any one person. So here it goes. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jen Oakley, and I'm grateful to be here today, sharing my perspective as a member of the Outreach, Access, and Coordination Committee for the Continuum of Care. To give you a little background, I'm a case manager at Rising Sun Center for Opportunity. Previously, I worked at Lifelong Medical in the Permanent Supportive Housing Program, and I have 8 years of lived experience being unhoused on the streets of West Oakland. Over 30 years of lived experience with mental health and addiction issues and involvement in the justice system. Earlier in my life, I got a Bachelor's of Science in Accounting from Christian Brothers University, and I had a successful career in insurance. All of this together brings me here today, where I'm honored to share a few thoughts about my time with the Outreach, Access, and Coordination Committee, both the good and the challenges. When I was first asked to join the committee, I felt excited, hopeful that this role could be a chance to make a difference for people with lived experience of homelessness, to bring our voices and experiences into a system that directly impacts us. But at my first meeting, I realized there's something that I didn't expect. I was confused. The discussions were filled with unfamiliar vocabulary and acronyms, and the language was complex and policy heavy. While I had lived experience through homelessness and knew the needs and struggles firsthand, it was clear that my experience alone, or my college degree, wasn't enough to fully participate, to fully understand the system we were discussing. I wanted to help, but I found myself questioning, how can I contribute if I don't even understand the language being used? Since then, I've often felt lost in committee meetings. Finding essential documents like meeting materials can be challenging. They are often buried in emails or on some Google Drive. Or encampment prioritization matrix. I don't even know what the titles of these documents mean. There are so many resources scattered across so many different places, and when I do find documents, they're often too long and filled with dense language that makes it hard to participate fully. Let me give you a concrete example. From our September meeting, the OAC meeting, Outreach, Access, and Coordination meeting, the committee mentioned that we would be reviewing a significant document, the Alameda County 2022 Coordinated Entry Evaluation. This document was buried in the August materials that were 117 pages long. And as someone trying to stay informed, I felt like I needed to read all of it. But it was overwhelming and full of statements that were too difficult to understand without explanation. For example, the document contained a four-word sentence that said, CES is well advertised. While this might sound simple, I didn't understand what it meant. So I asked, and someone explained to me that it means that housing resource centers would provide housing assessments for people experiencing homelessness are intended to be well known in the unhoused community. I realized that I had an opinion about this. As someone with direct experience, I don't believe these resource centers are well advertised.
Thank you.
I feel that generally, homeless people do not even know what a housing assessment is, much less know there are housing resource centers where they need to go have them done. I didn't find out about the existence of assessments and resource centers until I was long out of homelessness, housed and working in services. But without this explanation of this four-word sentence, I couldn't have even formed that opinion, let alone shared it in a meaningful way. Another aspect that stands out is voting. When it's time to vote on decisions in committee meetings, I often feel that I haven't been given enough information to make an informed choice. I know that these votes matter, especially for people who are currently unhoused. And yet, without context or a clear understanding of what we're deciding, I feel like I'm just signing off on things without knowing the impact that they'll have on the lives of people living in the streets. Also, sometimes we rush through agendas, only to get stuck on smaller issues. If you guys know what I mean, leaving me wondering about the effectiveness of our discussions. I know I'm not alone in feeling this way. Others with lived experience have voiced similar struggles, and it's an ongoing barrier to our involvement. As someone in recovery, I've learned the importance of asking for help, so I reached out. After about the first 6 months of meetings, I finally started to feel comfortable enough, to speak up in meetings about not understanding certain terms or topics and consistently advocating for plain language to be used in these spaces. I actually got a response one time that I know wasn't meant to be offensive, but one committee member suggested that it may be helpful if members used an 8th grade language. I know this was said with the best intentions, but I've got a college degree, guys. I mean, come on. We're not dummies. I would have to say I was just kind of offended. Or really offended. Other ways I've asked for help is I've sought one-on-one time with other committee members who can help me grasp complex points. I have repeatedly suggested that we need a buddy system. A person on the board that we can text or email before and during the meetings with questions. After much persistence, finally I found 2 people willing to be my buddy, but none of the other people with lived experience got a buddy. One of my buddies has been super helpful and had met with me a couple times before the last meeting. The second person agreed to meet with me and another member with lived experience very soon. So that works. That definitely works. To have a buddy is helpful, and I think that all members should have that. But even with these efforts, there still isn't enough support for people like me. And I know other members with lived experience feel like this as well. So I'm here to advocate for what people with lived experience need in these committee spaces. First, we need co-chairs and staff to prioritize using plain language and to take time explaining topics and agenda items fully. Agenda topics do come with descriptions, but they can be written so that anyone can understand regardless of prior knowledge and experience. Kind of like in your voter guides, how there's descriptions under each thing, you guys are all voting right now. Kind of like in your voter guides, how it describes, what each vote, anyway, you know what I'm saying? Let me see where I am. A tutorial on how to access agendas and meeting materials would also be helpful, along with clear instructions on how to find committee resources. If a document is mentioned in the or shared in the Zoom chat, make sure it is added to the agenda or stored somewhere accessible. Because once a meeting ends, we can no longer access the Zoom chat, which makes it hard to follow up on things we might have missed during the discussion. For longer documents, like the 117-page meeting materials, it would have been helpful to hold training sessions or discussions to break down these documents in ways that we can understand. In addition, it would be helpful if co-chairs checked in during the meetings about pacing. Many of us aren't used to policy work, so checking in helps us keeping up and understanding each topic fully. Education on the continuum of care would also make a difference with people with lived experience in these roles. We need support understanding policies at broader systematic level so we can effectively contribute to solutions. With these practices, people with lived experience will be better equipped to engage in committee work meaningfully. These efforts don't just support us, they strengthen our committee as a whole by ensuring all voices are informed and empowered to help end homelessness in our community. And thanks for listening. I really do look forward to working with everybody. But I wanted to know, if we have time, if you have any suggestions, if people with lived experience have other problems that you think need to be addressed as far as working in the committees, but also any solutions that you guys all might have that may help us. Anyone?
Y'all can tell me to stop talking because I do talk a lot and I do like to talk, so I apologize. But I really feel like a bunch of short videos that explain our system, that explain different parts of our system, that create a place where anyone can go and understand, oh, the reason why there are people living on the streets is because guess what? We don't have enough housing or homeless shelters. I'll never forget a conversation I had with a friend from college who just kept saying, why aren't they going to homeless shelters? And this is like 10 years ago. I said, because there's 500 beds in homeless shelters and 4,500 homeless people. So you tell me which ones you're gonna get in and aren't gonna get in. Like, the simple information, the facts of the matter are not clear. And if our elected officials don't even know that kind of information, then how, so a bunch of short videos.
One thing I would say is don't take it personal. I think most of us that come into this space, even doing the work, don't understand what's happening at first when we sit in the committee. So don't take it personal. It's not anything, it's not a reflection of you at all. Continue to speak up so we understand where we need to improve. And then also, I would suggest this to anybody, is to go to the HUD website and look at what HUD mandates the CoC to do so that you understand what it is that they are directing and what our role is. And you can bring that knowledge and understanding to the committee, and it'll help. I think it helps when we're having some of the conversations about the different components that we have to develop and vote on.
I think over here.
Good afternoon, everybody. How you doing? Hi, Stephanie. I was just thinking, when I first came in, the first program was, I think it was EBHO, St. Mary's, and Everyone's Home. And when I first came in, I didn't know anything about the system. I didn't know how it worked. And I found that I was really clueless. And so over the last couple of years, I had to really educate myself by joining other leadership groups, by going back to school, and just really studying the issues and policy in order to, and even how our government works, So it's been in education, it's a school of hard knocks, you know, it's not like a academic institution, but I think, more levels of training prior to first coming in. Because when I first came in, I didn't know what the heck they were talking about.
Yeah.
They were using all of these acronyms and at one point in time, I think in the working group, we actually asked them to do a glossary.
There is one now.
Yeah, that's where it came from, because we didn't know, I was gonna say that word, guys. I didn't know what they were doing, Lord. I didn't know what was being said. And so I think that sometimes we try to place people in places, but we don't equip them for success. So I think that there needs to be more programming within, if in fact you want to bring people in space to be effective for the continuum of care, not only to be, to understand and do the work, but also that we could be better advocates, because we need to advocate outside of the CLC in order to get funding, in order to get the work done. So, anyway.
Thank you guys. That, I think they're not gonna have I don't think they were gonna have
Just one quick thing. I'm someone with lived experience that nobody realizes that I pass all the time. And I think one thing we could do is in these meetings is focus on what to do. And I think the folk who are currently homeless or previously homeless have a good idea about what works and what doesn't work. And a lot of the meeting times are focused on the structure and organization. And if we had a chance to sort of put our minds together to say, okay, let's look at this one thing. How's it working? How can we improve it? Because the folk who are using those services know. That's just what I'd say.
Thank you guys.
So well said. Thank you, Jen.
Give a warm welcome to Deidre, who's going to come speak for us.
So, hi, everybody. I'm pleased to be here, and one of the reasons I'm very pleased to be here is we need these kind of spaces so we can get to know one another, so we can recognize one another. It's hard to know who one is when you just see them on a Zoom. And I'll speak to that a little bit later, but my role here today is to let you know that last July, Patrick Anderson and I, we applied to the National, we applied to the National Environment, National Everyone Home Alliance to go to Washington DC. They put an email address on, and I read it on my computer. Anyway, we responded. I think Arlene called me, Patrick called me, and he said, this is very interesting. You can go to Washington DC and have your expenses paid. And I said, really? That's what an opportunity that would be. So I read it, and they said that you have to submit an essay saying why we should choose a scholarship for you. So Patrick and I actually applied, and I was a day late in my application, but I sent it off anyway. And I was notified later, a couple months later, I'd forgotten all about it, that I had been accepted. And I was really excited about that experience going to the halls of Congress, because we were going to be advocates for our counties, for our congressmen, and we were going to speak with our congressmen. And I thought, well, even though they pay my expenses, I might not be able to go, because the day that I left, I had $30 in my checking account. And however, what I didn't realize is when I got off the plane, they handed me $300 for me. Out of pocket. That's okay for our lift. They just paid for everything. So putting that aside, I just want to empower you all that when these opportunities arise, go ahead and apply. because you too may be able to take a trip somewhere. However, we had an important reason for the trip, and those were asks, which I learned on the trip. When you go to Congress, you ask for certain things, and they're called asks. So we had 3 important asks from the state of California. We represented the Bay Area, along with someone else from San Francisco. I also discovered that out of 300 applications, Patrick and I were the only 2 that were chosen for the Bay Area. One of the asks that we actually went to the halls of Congress. We actually went in the lab underneath where January 6th, where they were hiding from the people who were outside trying to break in. We were actually there. They really inspired some feelings. We saw where the House of Representatives were. We went to their offices. We went to the offices of congressmen, and we actually were told that their aides were very important people, not to be dismissive to them because it's through the aides that our asks generate results. So what do we ask for? We ask for appropriations. That means how does Congress allocate the money?
Yes.
Okay, so we were advised the CoC was already granted $4.5 million, but we asked for a 7.5 increase. When we were talking to the aides and the congressmen, there were actually tears in their eyes. We felt a personal connection to everyone that we ran into there. We also asked for, number 2, we asked for a bump up in salaries for frontline staff.
Yes.
Because they're not paid enough, they get burned out, and they quickly move on to new jobs. We also asked for $30.5 million for tenant assistance. So those goals were accomplished, and we're back down to ground level now. So what I have been talking to people here about is advocacy. I've talked to Ms. Shelley and different people here about advocacy. How can we begin advocacy here? So, and who can we collaborate with? And where's the money gonna come from? Most importantly, right? So, there's Measure W, which we will find out in a few short weeks, how that money is allocated. There is HAP. I have to look that up. And then there is a $1 million planning grant line item in the CoC, and we want to know if we can get included in that as a line item for people with lived experience, so that we can continue to meet together and we can have a place to meet, and we can have a chance to get to know each other. Because if you have advocates from the disparate occupations and locations, you don't have a personal connection. So we really want to do that. So I just want to suggest that we do a timeline, and we only have a few short weeks to get it together, and I think that we can do it.
Time for questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deidre. Next up, we have Freeway coming to speak. Everybody give a warm welcome to Freeway.
so short.
You're so short.
Should I sit right here? That doesn't work, so never mind. Now that we've tested the parameters of the microphone. Forgive me, I'm a little nervous.
It's all right.
This is a subject that's really important to me, because it affects so many people and it affects, be honest here, let's do that, let's have that open, honest conversation, it affects me. And so, yeah, so the discussion we're having today is about the accessibility and the open dialogue regarding people with lived experience or living experience who use drugs. And just off the top, I want to say, yes, there are people that are in recovery, and this is in no way a slight at them. I'm incredibly proud of my friends that are in recovery. I lift them up. They are doing amazing things. This is in no way taking away from that. There is still a large faction of people, however, that have not gotten to that point in their journey yet. And until we have these spaces for them in these positions of people with lived experience where they can feel safe and they can feel accepted, we're going to continue to have a large amount of people dying for no reason. In the book, I'm Doing Drugs by Maya Salovitz, the author documents the war on drugs and how it has systemically racist and classist roots. And I think everybody in here probably is aware that the war on drugs is not a war on drugs. It's a war on the poor, it's a war on BIPOC communities, and anything else is just BS. That being said, for years now, it has been integrated into our society to be stigmatized, or to stigmatize and to demonize and criminalize even people who use substances. That has gotten so deep within our mindset that even now in fields like harm reduction, you're starting to see where more and more of the peer-led, community-based organizations are less and less, and more government-run, government-funded organizations are becoming more and more. And when you start to take away that peer-led aspect, you start to lose what harm reduction was to begin with. In the beginning, back in the late 1980s, a woman named Edith Springer, who's known as the goddess of harm reduction, you're nodding your head, thank you, started touring the globe, introducing this concept to people, to doctors, to nurses, to recovery specialists, that there was a different way that we could help people recover. The Minnesota model, also known as the 12-step model, or tough love, was not doing the trick. There were people who she had seen as a therapist that were suicidal after coming out of treatment, or just the conditions were not compassionate. And she introduced this concept, and over the years it's grown. What we're seeing today is so far removed from that initial concept. It's incredibly easy to say that we include people with lived experience, but to be a person who has chemical autonomy, to exist in a world where you don't feel safe saying, hey, I need to take 5 minutes to go take care of myself, and feeling like you can say that safely, what that does is it creates isolation. And there is no argument that addiction is a disease of isolation. If we're going to break that isolation, the only way to combat that is compassion. Instead of shunning each other and saying, you know, you have to do this behind closed doors or hidden away, or you have to lie about it, you have to keep it a secret. Try embracing that person, and again, going back to the recovery thing, I'm not saying put your recovery in jeopardy. If you're in recovery, you do what you have to do to stay where you are and to stay, to maintain that. But for the people who are not, who this doesn't affect directly, if you have a friend and they're using and they're struggling with that, the best thing you can do is go and sit with them while they're high. You reach out to them. Instead of pushing your arm out, try curving that arm and pulling them in. There's so many things we wanted to cover now, I'm just getting emotional. You know, the inequities that we're seeing in every fashion of this field are heartbreaking. There is no reason that a person should feel like they can't ask a doctor for health care because of their substance use. There is no reason that a person should feel like they can't be honest with their family or their loved ones about their substance use, or like they can't participate in their community in organizing because of their substance use. And yeah, I'm sorry, I got off topic. I got off points. So I'm trying to get my topic points up and they're not working now. It's awesome.
You got this, girl.
You're coming from the heart.
Take your
That's all that
time.
matters.
Your time for your way.
So the changes that need to be made. The first change needs to be made is the openness and honest dialogue, and that's what we're starting with here today. We need to talk about the conditions that are being excused or even encouraged by the powers that be. It is no longer acceptable to look at somebody on the street who is dying of open wounds because they can't receive the health care they need and say, oh, that's just another junkie. Those days are freaking over. It is 2024. Let's take back next year, please. There it goes again. I'm sorry. I know it's logged out, whatever. The language that we use, talking about, just like I said just now, the language that we're using, even within our own circles, there is an incredible divisiveness and dichotomy, even in the ways that people do use. I can't tell you how many times I've heard somebody who uses one substance a certain way complain about somebody who uses a different substance another way. Point is, they're all substances. If you drink, you're using a substance.
Right.
If you smoke weed, you're using a substance.
Right.
Let's get past the details of this. The unity is what's gonna get us past this. The unity is what's gonna save lives. We need to start creating policies, and in doing so, we need to start including those people that are directly affected by these policies. One of the largest groups of people, it's like 90%, which is a really stark number. 90% of people who meet the criteria for substance use disorder that come out of incarceration are at risk of overdose, 60% higher than when they went in. My brother Andrew was one of them. There is no reason that there shouldn't be state legislatures making laws that say that when you come out of incarceration, especially if you're in that 30-day sweet spot, that scary spot, you shouldn't have Narcan available for you, you shouldn't have people waiting to sit with you, you shouldn't have resources available that can keep you alive. Until those laws start getting made, until we start including those people that are being affected by them, we're gonna have this conversation every year. I was having this conversation right here last year, saying that this needed to be addressed. And we're here again. So, I think we need to take questions.
Turns down a little bit.
Thank you, Freeway, for always bringing the voice of those that people are always pushing to the side and to the back, or, you know, shaking their finger at. But I also want to say that it's the shaming around drug use that causes people also to die because they're ashamed of what they're doing. And, you know, that we have to stop canceling folks just because of the choices that they make, not giving an excuse to people, because I myself also was an intravenous drug user of fentanyl and meth, and now have 18 months clean because I was accepted into the community. And I just say that I don't scruffle around trying to figure out how I'm gonna make rent. That I can actually focus on my healing from the 10 years of trauma, having to be swept and pushed and you know, excluded and shamed and all that we get for being unhoused. But I can focus on my healing on my terms also. It's not what, you know, Bill and Bob, no shame to Bill and Bob, because they cool. But I'm BIPOC, I'm African American. African spirituality is my, you know, my religious preferences, and I need things that work with me, and so we're working with holistic ways to heal, to learn indigenous ways. And I just want to say that this is where we need the continuum to care, or excuse me if I'm saying it wrong, to not stop once we get our housing. That's not the end goal. We need people to continue to check in on us. I was sharing yesterday in a smaller group that, I'm sorry, do I have time for me? I'm sorry. I'm gonna be quick, okay. That yes, it's giving the housing, but it's the afterwork that really is going to be needed to bump up. You know, checking in with our people when they're in these whole new neighborhoods, making sure that they have access to continuing resources so that they can sustain long-term housing, so that they can start to heal from all of the things that they've been going through, being unhoused, being substance users, and this, that, and the other. And so thank you, Freeway, for always bringing that to the table, because, you know, people like to tell us who we are, but they don't really have the love to help us heal from that stuff.
Thank you.
Thank you guys. So my name is Anthony, hi Freeway. So I'm a recovering addict myself. You know, I started using when I was 15. It's crazy because look, I can just tell you, like, I can't look at anybody in here and tell where you've been the X amount of years you've been in this life, right? We've all had our own experiences. Our lenses have seen different things. Like, once upon a time, my lens never saw these kind of walls. I've been in a building full of a bunch of people that are, you know, here for a certain cause, right? So it's about giving, for me, it's about giving that unconditional love without any expectations, you know, to individuals that are out there, because I don't know anybody's life story, but I know my own, you know, and I couldn't look at myself through someone else's eyes and even begin to see where I've been, let alone look at yours. So it's about, I agree, you know, about having that approach of just having that unconditional love, meeting people where they're at and stuff like that, because I call life, like in life, there's like spiritual checkpoints, right? Like you go along and then you have a moment that kind of like confirms, like, oh, this is where I'm supposed to be at this specific time. Like I've had a 10-minute conversation that led to a life-changing move for someone, you know what I mean? And, you know, I give that to the spirit, you know what I'm saying? But it's just like, it's you just don't know the power of a tongue can cut, and the power of the tongue can also heal. It's just, and you know, and yeah, it's based on the receiver, but it's not, I don't know. I'm just part of the efforts. I don't know the results of it, but I know if I can't help somebody, I'm not going to hurt. You know what I mean? So that's what I do. So I appreciate what you're saying over there. It's true. I've been on the streets, I've overdosed, I have 4 Narcans done. That's why I'm here today. You know what I mean? That's why our organization has Narcans. We can't force it upon people to have it, but we can at least have that piece where we're here just to help the next person or the person next to them. That's all. Thank you.
I just wanted
I just want to say something.
Hello.
My name is Leon. I just wanted to say something. Another thing I think is important too, those who find housing, is to go check up on, those that, who's still out there, go check on them. I try to make it a habit, to go back down, downtown or whatever, and, check out, see how they are doing. Go check on them, because once upon a time you were there, but some people, may not ask you or come to you and ask you, hey, what did you do? Or, how can I get that? Or whatever. Some people might just, look at you. You might just be an inspiration to somebody, just coming down there. Just, me and my wife here, we come down and we hang around with people that we was homeless with, and, it's not, nothing's changed. And I tell them I love them. And my sisters, my brothers, so I go check on them. And I'll make sure they're all right. If I can help you, if I can help them, I can. If not, just, I try to figure out something. But at least go check on them. That's a lot. That means a lot to a lot.
So we're gonna pass the mic to Kalani, is that right? Thank you,
I just wanted to come up here one last time, to thank all of our speakers. You guys did amazing. To thank all of our listeners. Just to thank every guest here, because, since emerging leaders, I have always felt so welcomed in these spaces that I was never a part of before. And, after hearing everyone, there seems to be some main issues that everyone touched on. Of course, the language, but also the inclusivity. And, I feel like we all need to come together, and it starts here. And so I just wanted to show my appreciation and say thank you to everyone. Thank you for the honesty. Thank you for the openness. Thank you for this dialogue. And just thank you for being present. That's all.
I just want to say thank you to Freeway. I met you at one of the conferences before. And I like what you said about encouraging it and pulling them in. And some of us, I'm going to point to myself first. Substance abuse is substance. It can be marijuana. It can be that glass of Chardonnay or Merlot or Zinfandel. And, you may think that, oh, I'm just drinking wine, or I'm just going to smoke a little bit. You know what? You gotta look at yourself. I learned so much about alcoholism. I said, well, why don't they just stop drinking? Oh, because you might have a heart attack, or you might have a seizure, until I actually took a look at the person, and I said, well, I'm no better than you. I have that 1 or 2 glasses, or maybe 3 and a half. I'm not by myself, I know I'm not. Or that cold beer when you leave here or something. And I learned about his substance abuse because it's socially acceptable. Those billboards say, come by and get that Michelada or that Budweiser or whatever it is. And I like what she said about that. Sometimes we got to look at ourselves, and instead of just put your curve down around and pull them in. Learn about their substance abuse, learn about that meth, learn about all that other stuff. And that's the end of it right now. I'm not saying anything else.
Okay. Thank you, Barry.
I have to let everybody go.
Can I say this real quick?
We're eating into our break.
Wait, let me say this. I saw Freeway. I don't say where. But there was some moving going on, and I'll put it like that. And there were, I don't know if it was the police or whoever, but they were talking to the people really disrespectful.